You passed your luck check. It's
The No Class Podcast.
with your garlic-breathed hosts, Eddie.
And Matt.
So, as some of you may have heard from the old Twitch show, Sunbird, our barbecue supply, is no longer with us.
My cholesterol levels are dropping as we speak.
So we feasted on shrimps instead. And that was a fine meal, but it's
not the same.
It doesn't have that cocaine fuel that we need for this podcast to keep Matt awake during the shows.
Fighting it, but no, it's all good. And we availed ourselves of the super secret shrimp sale.
So people have been asking us if we're going to keep the podcast going now that we have the Twitch, though. So I would like to announce we're going to get rid of the Twitch show and just keep the podcast. How about that?
I love it. Let's do it.
The one thing you can't do on this, though, is go, how many fingers am I holding up? Because now they can't see us. They don't know we're nude.
They know that there's only one finger being held up.
They can imagine.
Yeah.
They can imagine us nude.
Exactly. Poor things. If they've just eaten, they might be a little queasy now.
I'm trying to think. There was one on the Twitch show the other day where it was like, I have something I'd say right now. Oh, I know what it was. It was the Long Con swag. Mm-hmm. So it was something that is branded that has our logo, and you'll think of us every time you use it.
A onesie.
A suppository. But I did not think that would fly on the Twitch show.
Probably not. Even that's not that racy, but we say that. Yeah, we've been told. I mean, not that we've done anything wrong since the last two, but before we ever even did the first one, they were like, all right, let's have a sit down and we need to talk about, what you can and can't do. Which is
a lot. It's supposed to be G-rated.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so far so good. I'm pleasantly surprised that we haven't had any slips.
And those of you that are coming from our podcast to the Twitch, thank you so much.
But what if they're coming from the Twitch to the podcast?
And hey, we're tickled to have y'all too. Welcome to the potty, pal. But yeah, so it's just great. I love the cross-pollination because we can be a little saltier. Not that, we're not one to use a lot of vulgarity. If you listen to us from day one, we slip a few SDFs, whatever. But ultimately, I don't think we're not really that. We don't work that blue anyway.
But I like to put some F words in there because when we're effing excited about something.
Oh, yeah. That's usually what it's more about. We're just so exuberant we get carried away. Because, hey, I'm a nurse. You better believe we get a little salty at work. We use a little colorful language. So.
And I'm retired military, so we never did.
Yeah, military's not ever been known for profanity or vulgarity. But I just, as a rule, we have some people out there that are more, I'd like to think maybe a little more delicate in their constitution, and we're glad to have them too. And so we don't want to harm their sensibilities. And they look past the little bit that we're raunchy.
So let me tell you this story, this real life story that just kind of amused me the other day.
Okay.
Me and my son are walking back from across the street where the grandparents are. And there's a decent amount of traffic. It's a 4-lane road. Mm-hmm. So I said, keep a good eye out here. Once again, keep a good eye out here. And he looks at me and kind of chuckles and says, no, I don't think so. So we get across the street and I go, what? And he says, yeah, you said good die here. In the middle of the road. I'm like, all right. That's a bit of a misunderstanding, but kind of gave me a sad chuckle.
There you go.
Good die here.
Good die here.
No, nothing. Okay. Well, luckily, at least on the Twitch show, people tell us we're hilarious.
Well, I'm over here smiling ear to ear, so.
Yeah, but that's unrelated. You were still trying out the suppositories.
Duh.
Well, duh.
Well, duh. I'm listening to the No Class Podcast.
Well, duh.
All right. So, what do you have to say about the Long Con, sir?
It's the best. We have sold about 30 badges so far for those that keep up with such things. Mm-hmm. I was going to mention that on the Twitch show, which that's good for now because it's really not going to kick off into high gear until next month. Mm-hmm. So I'm not at all disappointed with that or saddened by it. Now, after NTRPG, that's when people start thinking about us. And after NTRPG, if we don't see that sudden spike, then I'll be sad.
And we learned this, gosh, when we first were doing this. There was one point where it eked along, and we were down, crestfallen. We weren't trying to get any swag. We drug our feet on that. And you got to get ahead of the game with the whole China ordering thing. And even then, it's worse now. And we were down to the wire, and all of a sudden, ticket sales exploded. What was it for LongCon 2?
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, holy crap. But it was just like at the last minute, it literally just blew up and blew our minds. And so we've kind of learned, it's going to happen when it happens, but it happens, and we're going to hit 200 this year.
No doubt about it.
No, I have zero doubt. It's kind of when we were talking on the Twitch show about, like, Eddie was having some trepidation, and I had a little bit, because I won't like it till he was, somebody 10 years, he was more comfortable on number 2, like that pressure was off. And even I was a little more comfortable too, because I felt a little bit of the pressure,
Did you?
Yeah, a little bit. But
maybe it was the lighting.
Could be. Yeah, for anybody that was concerned if I've done some weird dye job on my hair, it was the funky lighting that I hadn't used. I didn't have my hat on like the first one, and I have the light over me was on and light beside me was on. Anyway, I got to do something about some front lighting or whatever. But anyway, for the Twitch, those are the problems with like for the podcast, I'm unshaven, unkempt, unbathed, whatever. But for the Twitch, like, I need to go, put on a little concealer or something,
Well, that's why I will stay in the hat club.
And I'm going to be wearing mine going forward. Because it was just weird lighting. No, I haven't done anything weird to my hair.
It wasn't James Cameron.
Right. And I still don't get that joke, but okay.
Really?
No, I really don't.
Avatar.
What about Avatar? Oh, because
CG.
Yeah, looking.
Your hair was CG. Yeah.
Yeah, your hair was CG. Now I get it. But anyway, games are being added all the time. We got Brendan LaSalle and David Beatty coming, and we got some other people like we got from New Big Dragon. We've got LeBlanc coming, and he's cool. I think Ben is coming this year. Normally he doesn't come in November, but he's talking about Ben Burns, and he's always got some cool stuff at his booth. And he's got some new products with his, because he's the new Comet or whatever.
And what about Bill Barsh?
And Barsh is talking about
Pacesetter games.
Pacesetter games. Really, I don't know that he's going to have a booth for Pacesetter, but he, as far as him coming out, and he's definitely someone who, to us, ooh la la, we're tickled to have Bill coming out.
And hopefully he's going to run the Kick Open the Door and Kill the Monsters tournament for us.
Definitely. He was so blown away by the terrain we had, where we took his idea and kind of took it up a notch, but absolutely it was his. We stole that from him. But so I was like, well, why don't you come use our terrain and do what you do best, humiliate and destroy people,
kill people and hurt their feelings.
Hurt their feelings. Nah, we kid. We love
not me.
We love Bill, and we're really.
I love you, buddy, but
yeah, definitely. We're the ones I think
Truth.
coined the phrase "barshed." So, but we say that as a friendly homage, chiding, teasing kind of thing. So yeah, LongCon is going to be great. Really looking forward to it. We're in a better spot as far as easier access to food choices for our participants. Anyway, things like that.
Okay, one thing we talked about on the Twitch too was swag.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to kind of blend that in because I was going to talk about NTRPG, but carry on.
Okay. Well, speaking of swag for the LongCon, yes, we are still looking for ideas, and surprisingly, I think the most popular thing was magnets.
Well, that's all I saw was magnets.
So if you want a LongCon refrigerator magnet, go ahead and let us know if that's the number one thing.
Feedback. You can either do it on our Facebook page, because we have the No Class RPG Facebook page, or use email, which is noclassrpg@gmail.com. Podcast at gmail.com. We try to make it longer, but there is no "the" though. Remember that. Or
you can hit up the LongCon.
Just hit up the LongCon, whatever. But on that Facebook page. But let us know.
Or you can call Matt at 318.
But would you be more interested in magnets or say a keychain?
Well, we would like to have something that is branded, that has the LongCon on it, so everyone can see it and you can always remember us fondly.
Absolutely.
Like those are the guys that stole my money and then canceled the con at the last minute.
Exactly. I hate those guys. So you want to remember us for that.
Exactly.
But yeah, like a magnetic keychain. What floats your boat? Give us some ideas. But yeah, so talking about North Texas, which is coming up really quick.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks. We're big proponents. We love North Texas, great con. That's where we, stole with both hands a lot of our best ideas. That's going to be happening soon. If you've never went, I couldn't recommend it more. God bless and rest his soul, Doug, and who was used to be the big dog, and you got Mike's still there, and Gary's picked up a lot of the slack. Brian, and there are a number of other people that help out behind the scenes, and now David, Doug's son, is even more involved. So we appreciate them and what they're doing, and looking forward to seeing those guys and hanging out, like talking about Bill and Ben and all these guys, David Donahue,
And we're special guests.
Yeah, and which is cool. This is our third time as special guest, so it's really neat. We appreciate the honorarium from them, and
Bad Mike was going to have us on his YouTube show. Well, we've got one more chance to do it. It's got to be next Wednesday, and your schedule is horrible.
Yeah, my schedule is crap. But the thing about it is, if this continues, knock on wood, our census is really low, so I might be able to get out a little earlier, maybe. We'll see. But it's kind of like they need a concrete answer now. Well, I know what to tell them. But
Me either.
But I'm really flattered that they would want to have us on their cast.
We're hot right now. We're rising stars.
That's true.
Anyone would be lucky to have us on their show.
Yeah.
Look what we did for This Whole Dungeon.
Absolutely.
Ratings through the roof.
Yeah.
Ratings bonanza.
Yeah. It's funny. I Google my name.
My.
Because I do that periodically throughout my life. Since the internet's been a thing. I found some money the government owed me doing that one time. So, you laugh. But when I did, it was some psychotherapist out of Washington State, the first 12. But then there was Matt Gullett on This Whole Dungeon podcast. I was like, what are the odds? But it's a funny little aside about NTRPG. God rest his soul. But I remember Doug years ago was like, I'm bringing food trucks. And everybody's like, that's brilliant. And I'm thinking, well, these are gamers, And it was like, we'll have lobster. And I was like, wait, what? And so leave it to Gary. God bless him. He put out what would you call it?
Poll.
A poll. And lobster got all of 5 votes. What were the top votes? Tacos and burgers. And that's like the venue we just left. There was a guy there who was like a brilliant chef, really good. And but when we first would talk to him, let's just do like a club sandwich and a bag of chips. Let's do burgers. Let's do tacos. He'd be like, we'll do lobster thermidor. And I'm like, dude, these are gamers. Think like 12, 13-year-old boys, Arrested Development, And no, and the proof's in the pudding. I noticed that this morning that poll by a landslide is burger truck, taco truck. Apparently pizza trucks aren't a thing, or that'd probably be number 3, But anyway, I thought that was an amusing little aside that lobster was way down there. Anyway, thanks for that look, buddy.
I missed the Twitch show.
Yeah, me too. We're going to have some cool stuff in NTRPG. So if Saturday, wear your long con stuff, and we're going to be giving away some cool swag. Got some neat stuff to give away. It's burning a hole in our pocket.
Yep. Yeah. So do it or else.
Yeah, you better. So we're really excited. Long, uncomfortable pause.
Which you're in charge of preventing.
So what do you want to talk about next, Home Slice?
Oh, is that it for Long Con and NTRPG Con?
Add more to that, sir. Please do.
I don't have to.
Okay.
I do what I want.
I know.
Whatever.
You're an outlaw. You're a Texas outlaw.
No, after that, here we go. One that we forgot last time. The viewer mail.
Oh, yeah.
So you got that fired up and ready to go? Your response to it, that is?
Oh, yeah. You better believe it.
So Jonathan K., and I'll just paraphrase this down as much as I can. If you had to recast the A Team, who would you put in there?
Well, first of all, I would want to call them the Double D Team.
I miss the Twitch show.
And
you guys don't get the benefit of the looks anymore.
Yeah, the looks would be great. Christina Hendricks as Hannibal, Queen Latifah as B.A., Charlotte McKinney as Face, and Gina Carano as Murdoch, because Murdoch's kind of crazy. And I think Gina Carano's a little crazy too.
Huh.
But these girls have something in common, but I can't quite put my finger on it, at least not in public.
We've got to start doing this as a video podcast now.
We probably have to put this on. That's the only way we're ever going to get on YouTube is if we do it ourselves, apparently.
Now, I know you have a fondness for Double D's, but do you have a fondness for the A Team?
Oh, absolutely. When they did the movie, I was so delighted in that, and who doesn't like the guy that played Hannibal?
Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Liam Neeson, and I think, what's his name? Bradley Cooper was cool as Face. I'm glad they had cameos for Face and some of them in that. So.
I had an idea for him in a movie where his daughter gets kidnapped, but it was taken.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's kind of like that movie. Well, never mind.
Save none of those fake laughs for me.
Oh man,
it's the Leave You Hanging podcast.
That's right, with your buddies. All right. But yeah, so what would you do for your update of the A Team?
Well, luckily, we both had Gina Carino in our lists, but I'm making her BA.
Oh, interesting.
She is the Mrs. T of the cast. She's the muscle.
Yeah, and so so not only did you're going to gender bend it, but you're going to flip over to a Caucasian. Interesting.
And this is not an endorsement of her or her ideas. Well, that's just kind of the name that came to mind.
Like I said, her is Murdoch because it's kind of she's a little out there.
I'm going to have Dolph Lundgren as Hannibal.
Interesting. This is a much more buff A Team. I'm saying
he loves it when a plan comes together.
That's right.
And Aaron Paul as Howlin' Mad Murdoch. Come on,
yeah,
you like that?
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
And Kit Harington, who knows nothing, as the Face Man.
There you go. That's a good lineup. I like that.
I heard he was a very pretty man.
I would watch that.
I wouldn't. I have, I guess, fond memories with the A Team, and when I was a little kid running around, but now that's not one of those things that I care about.
That ship is safe.
And that's coming from the guy that still keeps up with Transformers and Masters of the Universe and all this other childhood stuff. But I don't know why the A Team just doesn't. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe because it's faded out. It hasn't had movies and media as much to keep it alive in your mind.
Yeah. Did you see the movie back in?
No.
God, it's hard to believe it's been that.
No.
Was until 2010 probably, but it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't. It was definitely one of those summer popcorn. I mean, at one point, they're shooting a tank to keep themselves from falling to the ground. I mean, there's some silly stuff in there, but over the top. But I mean, yeah.
But to tie this back into role playing, in every episode they got locked in a garage or something and they had to build their way out. I was like, that would be kind of interesting to do in a dungeon. And you might have to do it post APOC because what would you do in the medieval dungeon, right?
Right.
But something like that where they get thrown in and locked into a garage and then they have all these bits and pieces that they could make something of. But they wouldn't. They would merely find a way to murder their way out. So that's my lack of faith in murder hobos.
Yeah. Murder hobo players.
You've ruined it for me, murder hobos.
That's right. Well, because I got to say, back in the day, and that's I think what Eddie, at the end of the day, probably liked running funnels was you didn't have any bells and whistles. If your character stood out, it's because you as a player were more creative, thought outside the box, came up with some clever plan. Because you didn't have, nowadays, everybody falls back on, my character has this bevy of bells and whistles and once a day abilities and that one magic item that does this one little trick. And that's how people, but yeah, a lot of people just are busy playing on their phone and they go, it's my turn. Let me look at my little, menu of things I can do. Oh, I'll do that power or ability. So yeah, I mean.
And if you lock him in a garage or something, the first instinct is not going to be, let's put some stuff together. It's going to be like, let's get the guard over here so we can murder him and then use his blood to lubricate the bars so that we can slip through and murder the rest of them.
Right. I mean, that's just everybody's knee jerk. And that's what I loved was even talking about Living Greyhawk. The first table I played at had 2 paladins. And I'm playing this insane necromancer. Well, my thought was like, let's kill them all and turn them into my automatons or something. But the paladins were like, no, we must. So we were the first party ever carried a lot of manacles, and we weren't killing people. The paladins were like playing. And again, nowadays nobody knows how to play a paladin. Like, I kill all the orphans. You're playing the paladin. And do you understand what a paladin's about? What do you mean? But these guys got it. Like, they played paladins and they were like, well, those are human beings. We're not going to kill them. We're going to bring them to justice or let the local constable ascertain their guilt or whatever. You know what I mean? So, which was kind of neat. When's the last time you saw that in a party? So anyway.
So thank you for the question.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thanks, dude.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. Now we get into the pop culture stuff.
Uh-oh.
Books, comic books, the printed word. What have you got?
Nothing.
Wow. Okay. I basically have nothing but going back to the Twitch show. Check out Ragemoor. Check out Barbarian Lord. We've already told you to check out Headlopper, but those are two super duper comics. Quick, easy, wonderful, fabulous.
And I definitely want to check out Ragemoor because the concept sounds really interesting. And knowing that it's Corbin for the artwork, which I love his artwork, and that guy, Jan, what's his face, they did Mutant World together. The guy's a great writer. This was probably his concept. Both concepts were probably his. And I love the concepts in Mutant World. So,
Well, I'm trying to think. I think you said it on the show the other day about the Scald.
Yeah.
But is that the same term I think that you use for, the sea creature broke through the whale's roof, talking about the ocean, or he's in the crow's field or something, the analogy or metaphor or whatever, the colorful language instead of saying the ocean or the roof or the...
Well, no, I mean, whereas like there's people, okay, so back in old D&D, you had like the bard, but like to play a bard, you had to have so many levels of wizard and thief and whatever. I'm going off on a tangent, but they used to have names for the different levels of like a wizard was actually called a sorcerer and a necromancer. Before he was a 10th level, you're named level, you're a wizard. Anyway, so a bard, which is more of a European, Western, typical, I think England, France were like a bard. Actually, in the Viking culture, back in the day, they had guys that were storytellers, not so much strumming a lute and singing a song, but they were these guys that traveled around who brought news. Because back in the day, you didn't have the internet, telegraph, whatever. The guys that went from town to town bringing news from how many miles away or telling some stories and tales was a skald in the Norse Viking culture or whatever back.
Well, I think the little metaphors like that too are considered skaldic.
Oh, interesting. But so the idea was this guy's supposed to be the Viking Lord Barbarian Lord.
Yeah, he's basically Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, and so but yet he's one that's got this real flair for speech as well. That he totally Def Jam kind of spoken word, just totally. He owns a guy verbally, so and I don't know if later on he beats him out literally physically, but
he does.
He does. But the idea is probably because he got his dander up because he totally beat the guy verbally too.
So after that, I'll go ahead and add this in so it's a little something extra for the podcast. We're not just chewing our food twice.
Yeah.
So he does fight the guy, and again, very Conan-esque. He freaking buries his sword in the guy's head. He just splits him right through the center. So the guy sits down with the sword in his head and says, "I'd always wished to have such a fine blade," and slumps over dead.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's pretty badass.
No, it sounds like you got some really good writing here. And that's where you say, I think Eddie and I we differ on our ideal artwork. I like myself a little more old school, a little more rough around. He likes his a little more polished.
Yep.
No one's wrong, no one's right. I'm right. But anyway, but ultimately, like I looked at the quality of that artwork, that's not necessarily your cup of tea, but it sounds like the writing is so good.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, you're okay.
I'm okay with Barbarian Lords. I like, what is it? The old Rat Patrol or whatever.
Are you talking about Ed Hardy or like Rat Fink?
You're at Rat Fink?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that it?
Where it's more cartoony, the bug-eyed rat holding the big,
shift
or whatever,
like Hot Rod magazine art sort of thing.
Right. But that's something different. But like we're talking about
Super Jail.
But that's so, or 12-ounce mouse. Well, that's where that just seems lazy or sloppy to me.
But Barbarian Lord again is kind of that just bold line print or whatever, which maybe not Samurai Jack style, but kind of where it's like that just bold lines and not a ton of detail.
When that's like Headlopper, there's times where shown at a distance, you can tell they just did a couple quick lines to represent his head and his beard. You might kind of go, what? But if they zoom in on him, there's a little more detail there. But again, that doesn't seem like the guy puts a ton of, how do I put it in a way it's not deprecating, but it's definitely a more simplistic art style.
Which I'm okay with. It's when you get into all that, I don't know, whatever that, we'll come up with that term later, but like the super jail and I think it was Hot Rod Magazine or whatever that had that same thing where I don't know. There's something about that turns me off.
What pulled me into DCC was they went and got some of the old school artists who were still alive and had them do their artwork. And so for me, it was the nostalgia of I remember that from D&D back in the day.
Well, old school D&D doesn't look like that.
No, but I'm just saying. Still, you go back and look at the artwork of some of those guys back in the early artwork. It's not that polished. It's not that refined or
that good.
Well, yeah, you say that, but I have a fondness for it. You know,
but
it's probably more nostalgia than anything.
Exactly.
Sure. So I'll own that. I'll own my side of the street. Yeah, I mean, it's more about nostalgia.
And then if you can't the legendary guys, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has to admit that that's quality stuff because
sure.
it's almost photorealistic.
Yeah.
But I could see where you say that doesn't, because it's so realistic, it doesn't bring me into the fantasy. It's not my favorite.
And I think that might be it, that you have to admire the quality of the work, sure, from Easley and Caldwell and all those guys. But honestly, I think something was kind of lost when they moved away from some of that other stuff. Something to each their own.
Well, I'll even give you that. Yeah. Because it's like the band that puts out their first album and it's real raw and garage, and then they get popular, and then the next one is super polished and poppy, and you're like, meh. So I mean, you make a good case for that. Why not?
But by all means, I admired those guys' work. But like you said, it's almost photo quality. Yeah, there's a certain element of that fantastic, whatever. Anyway, so yeah. Wow, we went down a rabbit hole there. But no, definitely check out those comics.
And we can do that on the podcast.
Exactly.
The Twitch show, we're under the gun, man.
Yeah, I'm like mentally like, if you're like, wow, Matt's got a little more curt and not quite so verbose. Well, we got to keep it mean and lean, But anyway, all right. So is that all about comics and books?
Yeah, that's it. Go run out and get those.
Yeah, do check them out, man. They're awesome.
TV shows.
All right.
What was your favorite episode of the A Team?
Dude, you put a gun to my head.
I was going to.
I wish someone would. I did not realize there is a third season of Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. And so actually I went back and I'm rewatching season 2, not having realized until I was like, I've watched this before, but I think I might have had a little potato water on board last time. So I vaguely remember it, but I really enjoying watching season 2 again, and I'll be watching season 3 soon. But definitely, if you haven't checked those out, Love, Death, and Robots, sometimes they get a little preachy. Like there's one with 3 robots, skip it in season 2. But otherwise, there's some good stuff in there. Definitely.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. And then on a goof, this came up in my feed somewhere and I went and watched it, but there was a show that came out in the 80s called The Atomic Cafe. And it was all this stuff from the 40s and 50s when we were under the threat of nuclear extinction. Luckily, we've moved past all that. But for me, it was interesting to go back and watch it where they took all these little pieces from those, like things that probably would have been on TV, like public announcements or before movies, like, in the event that you see a mushroom cloud, turn away and you get under your desk and duck and cover. And so it's interesting to see them and they actually had footage from like when they were testing Fat Man Little Boy and like the soldiers that were exposed to large doses of radiation before we figured that out, and like Bikini Atoll, where they tested, that ruined that island for these natural inhabitants that had lived there for generations. So watching this, you're agog going, oh my God, what our government did back then. And some of it was out of ignorance. Some of it was just their own, well, we're so advanced and we're America and you little, whatever goobers out. I mean, anyway, it's really interesting and enlightening and disturbing. But
did they put the line in there? I am not I'm not an atomic playboy.
Yeah.
Did you hear that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what's cool? This is and I love. You can watch it for free on YouTube from end to end. So by all means, go. It's free. You can see it on YouTube. The Atomic Cafe. And technically that's a movie, but I'm naughty.
You son of a...
I know.
Well, tell me about another movie.
Well, I'm just going to jump around a little bit, but yeah. And a lot of these are like, hey, guess what's coming? Giving you a heads up in case you didn't know. Matt's looking out for you. Kids in the Hall. Love those from the 90s. They're back on Prime. Yeah. I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. So the Kids in the Hall are back. They're on Prime. So I haven't checked those out yet,
Prime.
but I will. I hear Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just finished filming. Christopher Walken is going to be the Emperor in Dune 2. The Boys Season 3, the trailer is out and looks interesting.
You're talking to my worms all wrong. Do it again.
Yeah. Stranger Things Season 4 is due out soon. And interesting little aside, May 30, the special, Nothing Special from Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear that he had one more special saved up, recorded in his living room.
Yeah, recorded in his living room, figuring that he was going to go for some surgery that he was worried he might not survive. And he had a person who's helped him through the years do a lot of his stuff. Like, they recorded him. Well, then he survived the surgery, so he took it and threw it off in the back of a closet. Forget about that. And then, bam, he died, and tragically. And Norm Macdonald is such a treasure, one of my all-time favorite comedians. So how cool that they're going to put this thing out. So it's going to be something he filmed in his living room. So there won't be a laugh track or an audience, but I'm curious to see.
I think it'll be great, and I think it will be super dark.
Yeah. But Norm, that is just brilliant. But it comes out May 30th. It's called Nothing Special, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be on.
It's got to be Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
Because they just had Hitler's dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, went in the special talking about Hitler's dog.
Yeah, of all things. But yeah, so I was just that's my heads up for y'all on some things I'm watching or I intend to watch soon or they're going to be coming out soon. So your old buddy Matt's looking out for you.
Your old buddy.
You know it, your old pal.
Your old buddy.
Your old buddy, your pal.
All right, you got some movies? That was TV, folks.
Yeah, that was basically TV. I watched The Bad Guys because I've been hanging around children.
That's not clicking.
It's a cartoon. It's got Sam Rockwell as the big bad wolf, and it's got like another guy who's like a shark guy, and then there's a piranha guy. And
so it shouldn't be clicking, is what you're saying?
It should.
It's a
If
kid's
it did,
movie?
I would be concerned. Yeah.
Okay.
This is absolutely. But again, it's kind of like we watched. What was the one with Ryan Reynolds, the new guy or whatever? And because the kids were like, "Oh, let's watch it," and I'm like, "This would be my cup of tea," and I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it, for the most part. It's absolutely something for kids, but it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it.
It wasn't the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
No, I mean, absolutely.
All right, so movies for me, I have a theme.
Uh-oh.
See how long it takes you to pick up on it.
Yeah.
I watched Lords of Metal on Netflix, which is a movie about some kids starting a metal band in high school and entering into the battle of the bands. It was pretty good. And your man crush, was it Joe Mangelli?
Joe Mangelli or whatever, yeah.
He's in that.
Ooh la la.
He makes a brief appearance.
A cameo, but as what? I'm curious.
A psychiatrist, I think.
Oh, wow.
So he is in there. It's an interesting movie. Damning it with faint praise, I guess, but it's definitely a movie that's on Netflix that you can watch.
Okay.
It's all right. Did you pick up the theme yet?
Yeah.
All right. The other thing I watched on Hulu was Lords of Chaos, which is about the metal band, the actual metal band, Mayhem. Oh. And have you heard this story before? Do you know off the cuff what I'm going to talk about?
Have you mentioned this before?
Probably.
I think so. It sounds familiar.
Okay, so you may remember, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was the church burnings in Finland or whatever, and all the Finnish black metal. So this is one of the most notorious groups because the original, maybe not the original, the second lead singer was committed suicide.
Is Bradley like a fan of
Yes.
this? Yes. That's where Bradley's told me a lot of these kind of stories. And I remember, I enjoyed those conversations and him telling me about, let me tell you the lore about this T-shirt I'm wearing. It's got these babies hanging upside down with crosses on their faces or something with hooks in their toe. He's got these really wild looking shirts. And you're like, what the hell? And he's like, let me tell you the backstory. But carry on.
So for the newer listeners, that's who does our theme music.
Yeah, our buddy Bradley.
So they were part of the people involved in those church burnings, if you remember that back in the day.
Wow.
And one of the lead singers committed suicide, and so the guitarist's first instinct when he sees the guy dead is to run out and buy a disposable camera so he can take pictures of it. So he poses the guy around with stuff, like the murder weapon or this, that, and the other, and
I
takes
wish
pictures.
This was a video cast again. The looks on our faces are precious.
It is rumored that the band ate a stew made out of his brain. The guy that committed suicide, they did say that they took pieces of his, what is that? Your skull, your brain plate, whatever, and made necklaces out of it to wear around.
Holy crap.
They gave them to people that they really liked. Like, oh, you're some other famous musician in this black metal scene. Have a piece of Dead's, that was the guy, his skull or whatever.
Wow.
So that's not even the weirdest stuff that happens.
That's not even, wow. I got to check this out.
So eventually, the bassist of the band decides to kill that guitarist. But this is during like all these church burnings, and a thrill kill murder goes on during it by yet another member of the band.
Holy crap.
So yeah, it's a very interesting story. And if you watch HBO's Succession, I think the youngest son, Rory or whatever, plays the guitarist in this. And that's kind of odd too. It does well, but when you know somebody from something else and you're like, wait a minute. So it was a rather interesting movie. There are some questions on how realistic it is because it's from the guitarist's point of view. But people are like, no, he was a huge a-hole. Whereas this makes him out like he wasn't that bad a guy. Yeah. So that is the nickel version of the story. Wow. And I'm sure, again, Bradley is shouting at the podcast right now because I've messed something up. Yeah. But wow,
you got it all wrong,
it's a heck of a story.
Sounds like what's the name of that one again?
Lords of Chaos. And that's on Hulu.
Lords of Chaos. All right.
And then on Amazon, we have Death by Metal.
All right. I see a theme here for sure.
There you go. And that was the story of the band Death,
which I've heard of. Which
I'll say invented the death metal genre.
I'll say death metal genre, yeah.
So, and that was kind of the history of the band. So that was worth checking out. And I think I could probably find a song from them to play for anybody, and they'd go like, it's not bad.
That's interesting.
They broke away from a lot of that stuff where, like me, it's like, well, it's pretty fast, and it sounds like Cookie Monster on vocals. Yeah. So they had some other stuff as they kind of matured along, and I like more of their back catalog stuff. So, but if you were a fan of the band, that was a very interesting documentary as well.
Sounds interesting, yeah.
All right. We said we wouldn't do it, but how's those video games? You playing some Elden Ring?
It's still packed away. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I've definitely had the itch. I've had a very strong itch, but I have suppressed the need to scratch it.
There's been a few times where it's like, I'm going to do this in a couple hours. What am I going to do between this time and that time?
And bingo. That's it. I'm like, man, I got home from work. I'd like to unwind. I got about 2 hours before I really would need to go to bed. Boy, I could really do a little Elden Ring. I'm like, no, don't do it, And I've been trying to put a little polish on my Mega Mutant Mayhem, that the tournament I'm going to be running at North Texas and at, more than likely, at Long Con. So I'm trying to, and Eddie's given me some good feedback on that.
But what everybody wants to know is Caverns of the Dead God.
Well,
pressure him.
After this is done, it's all about caverns. It's all about caverns, man. It's all about caverns.
All right, video games. I have played just the tiniest smidgen of Elden Ring to kill some time, but I haven't discovered a lot of new and different stuff.
Well, after this is what, your third, fourth playthrough, I guess?
No, it's my second one, and then I'll just bust out that character and go run around the world and go like, oh, where's a dungeon I haven't been to? Or, hey, there's that spell that I wanted to get, just in case at some point old Gary decides he's going to try it out again.
Sure.
I'll be completely ready.
Well, yeah, because whatever he wants to do, you can go, I know just where to get that. Come here, follow me, or whatever.
Or if it's like, help me with this boss, it's like, oh, yeah, I can switch up to XYZ. Yeah. For the people that will get this, my spell casting character now is strong enough to use Radan's greatswords.
Oh, wow.
So my Intel character now has a 38 strength.
Yeah,
my Intel character.
You got some levels under your belt, yeah.
But I have been playing Pokemon Arceus.
Oh, my.
Arceus, however you'd like to pronounce it. And every game is like this now. It's like Breath of the Wild. Oh, it's Legend of Zelda, but in an open world. Elden Ring. Oh, that's Dark Souls, but in an open world. This one it's Pokemon, but in an open world. Yeah. So it's got a few cool innovations. It's got some annoying additions. So the jury is still out, but I've probably played enough of it now that I will be forced to play it through the end.
Oh, wow.
We shall see.
So scale 1 to 5, or you're not, it's too early to rate it.
I'll just go with a 3 right now, but that's very subject to change because there's some stuff that's like, oh, that's really cool. And then there's other stuff that's like, this is so annoying. This could drag the whole thing down.
Is it kind of grindy?
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the things about it, too, is there is a guy that will sell you inventory slots, and every time they get more expensive, and your bag is constantly full.
I hate crap like that.
So I hate it as well. That's one of the things that everybody online has complained about. So now I'm in it, and I'm like,
and that's one of those things where, like, I get that in, like, online games where they're going like, well, you have to earn these slots, or you can buy them with blip-bop points, but if you go spend hard-earned actual currency, you can buy more of those things. I see kind of the impetus, but this is a game where it's not like, why would they do that to you? You know, it's just annoying.
And I'll still say the best Pokemon game right now is Monster Hunter Stories 2. So if you haven't checked that out, do check that out. And the Daybreak or something like that should be coming out fairly soon too for Monster Hunter.
Ooh la la.
So give you guys a chance to get into that, since I did eventually bring you guys around to the dark side, maybe.
Yeah,
in the Dark Souls.
One time it was one night it was me, you, Gary, and Cody were all beating on monster heads in Monster Hunter, and I was like, this is kind of fun.
But then
it didn't happen again.
Yeah.
The lightning struck, that magic moment.
All right. Well, I'll give one very brief RPG update, unless you, and if you want to too. Here's mine, because it's going to be fairly quick. I just ran a little bit more Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, and the one thing I'll say is, people don't want to be cartoon heroes. They want to, kind of like you said, the paladin's going to kill all the kids. It's like heroic characters, cartoon heroic characters, and it's like, oh, let's just kill some people. Are you sure about that? So,
yeah,
there you go.
People have gotten in these games where they're just kind of bloodthirsty, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Enjoy what you enjoy, but that one's definitely one where it's like, okay, maybe we're going to change systems.
Yeah, and what a shame. Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say about your games? The old.
I'm having a lot of fun on club nights running DCC.
Yeah, what is that called again?
Oh, the Border Marches is just the name of the campaign.
The Living DCC, so to speak.
DCC, yeah, that's Legacy League.
Okay,
because that was
I couldn't remember what theirs was.
It's all good. That's their version of kind of like Adventure League for D&D, where originally they kind of scoffed at the idea when two geniuses put the idea out there originally, but they came around to the idea half-heartedly, I say. But they have the Legacy League, so that I guess if you go to a con and someone says, I'm doing a Legacy League game, you can show your documentation for how you've earned 3 levels in whatever gear your character has, which I think is good. But honestly, most people are like, I got pre-gen, just play one of my pre-gens, guy. But anyway, it's kind of like people say, you hate to maybe, sometimes you get tired of one-shots. You want that continuity. And so there you go. You have it, or, you know.
And you want to be able to take your home character around.
Exactly. Like, how cool. I would love that, though, if I could bring my, con character that from a one-shot where here's a pre-gen. Well, if it earns some cool stuff, experience and gear, I want to bring it to my home game. Like, I played this at a con fair and square and earned it, and, but whatever. Yeah, any of that. So there's something to be said. But yeah, definitely I've got a good little group. There's a guy that I've been trying to get him to join us from the beginning, and right before he's about to move, he joined us, and he's like, "This is great." I'm like, "Yeah, I wish you joined us sooner."
Sean.
Yeah, Sean. And so Sean had a lot of fun. He was fun on the table, which I've been telling Cody for a while. Hey, let Sean know he's more than welcome. Tell him to come on. But anyway, he had a great time. And luckily Jackson's going to be back. He's been having some health issues, but he seems really excited, and we're glad to have our prodigal rogue, back at the table. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. We've been having a lot of fun with it. Still room for a few more people. If anybody, wants to join, we're doing some fun DCC stuff. The adventures are pretty good, that I'm running, and at least I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. So this podcast topic, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the show today. That's what I'd be saying if we were on the Twitch show.
Right.
But luckily for you guys, we can go as long as we want on the podcast.
Exactly.
And we can even say heck.
Oh, my darn and golly. So the other day, I've got 3 great nephews. I've got Jack, Wes, and Austin. And Austin's my gamer. And, his uncle, planted that seed many years ago, video games and eventually kind of a little bit of role-playing games. But he's got some buddies that one of them's fixing to start up a D&D campaign. And they told him, hey, come up with an idea for a character, figure out what you want to play. And so they probably via text or who knows what they're on Twitter or something. They've all been talking about the different classes. So my nephew reached out to me. He's like, well, what a coup. I have an uncle who's like a long-time role-playing game. What would you suggest? And I tell anybody and everybody, play what you want. Because if you're going to have longevity, if you're going to have fun, if you shoehorn yourself playing something that you don't want to play, you're probably going to flake out and go away. And you don't want to be the flaky guy or gal. So this week's topic is that made me think about this was, hey, he was like, hey, give me some insight. What's some ideas? What should I play? Well, it's kind of like, he said, boom, here's the topic. Trying to decide on what character to play for a new campaign. Period. All right. So going into the topics, I would say first, examine the list of available classes. What role speaks to you? Melee combat, spellcasting, influence, sneaking, and so honestly, so that's the overarching thing is what speaks to you. Now you might want to shake things up, try something different. And there are people like me and Eddie, I know we're both cut from that cloth that if we get rolled up and everybody else is hell-bent, I want to be the warrior, I want to be the cleric, we'll play whatever's needed and we'll have a good time. But that, not everybody, is that. And if you're not, I'm not judging you. That's great. But kind of, I would say generally, try to figure out what you like to do. I like to get in there and mix it up. All right, you probably want to play some sort of fighter type, Of the 4 core archetypes, you always had kind of the warrior, the wizard, the rogue, the cleric. But there's all these, that diverges, The druid is kind of a healer buffer too, The sorcerer is in line with the wizard there. And the warlock maybe. And gishes are different, but that's kind of the hybrid warrior casters. What would you add anything to that?
Nope.
All right. So unless you're looking to shake things up, stick to what you like. And so I've already kind of said that, but to really kind of underline that, sometimes you want to try something different. Like, what? I play nothing but warriors. I'm ready to play something different. And great. But you might find, unfortunately, after a few sessions, you might be going to the GM going, I thought I wanted to play a rogue, but I'm just not lining up with the whole rogue mentality thing. And be big enough to own that and step away from it and find some excuse to retire that character and come in with something else. Some classes are more complex than others. How much complexity do you want? If you're not sure, ask the GM, judge, dungeon master, whatever. Just because you can play it doesn't mean you're playing it well. And we've talked about this in the previous podcast, but if you're going to pick the role, please play to the role. There's nothing more infuriating for a group of people than the guy or gal that goes, I'll play the cleric. And you go, oh, awesome. And then you never heal or buff. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're a jackass. You're playing a cleric. Well, I wanted to mix things up, but I just wanted to basically play a caster like I always have when I played wizards and sorcerers. And I'm going to be doing no. If you're not doing a little bit of buffing and healing, you're a jackass. You're playing the healer, Don't play that unless you're going to fulfill the role to some degree at least. Would you care to expound upon that, my friend?
No, because that'll turn into a rant.
Exactly. We don't want to do that. But anyway, I just thought I'd put that in there. And I've seen people again that go, I'll play the wizard, and then they do nothing but just kind of blast. And yeah, you can do that, and that's a wizard. But at the end of the day, you're not playing your best wizard. You're not playing the best wizard you can play. If you're not doing some control, you're not a top-notch wizard. I'm putting that out there. I just said that. By all means, you're blazing away with whatever, great. But if you're not doing some sort of control, you're not living up to the full potential of a wizard. So just because, I'm playing a wizard. Yeah, but are you playing it well? I'm playing a cleric, but are you playing it well? Even a warrior, in some games, it can seem kind of humdrum. But like DCC's D-Die, that's how you can be a brilliant fighter. The difference between a ho-hum fighter and brilliant is the person that they always get to have the D-Die to hit and damage. So which is cool. But if you're calling out like, I'm going to try to trip him, I'm going to blind him, I'm going to disarm him, I'm going to shield bash him off that cliff, that's the great fighter as opposed to the mediocre fighter. Mediocre. So that's where, if you're going to pick the role, play to it and try to be the best whatever. If you're the bard, you're the influencer, you're the face man. If you're like, well, I don't want to go talk to the NPC, okay, sure. You might still be doing great otherwise, but you're not going to be the best, bard. Nothing. All right. Avoid recreating a character from literature, TV, and movies. And I get it. A lot of times you've read that book, you've watched that show, and you're like, oh man, that is a cool concept. You're probably going to end up disappointed because, like in the movies, Legolas is like surfing down the cliffside on a dead orc and fires 3 arrows at once and kills 3 orcs and backflips and stabs one in the eye to get a little distance and then shoots another. Okay, you're not going to recreate that in any game system. And then you're going to be like, well, I'm trying to be Legolas. Well, you can't be Legolas because he's too good. I mean, he's a movie character. Or some character had some cool concept, like he carries the circular blade of Blip Blap. The GM might be cool and go, well, we'll see if we can recreate this circle blade that Xena had or whatever. Or they might go, nah, so you're going to be upset because you don't have the cool Xena circle blade, and then, or if nothing else, I'm going to call my guy Legolas. Dude, be original, no Gandalfs, no Legolas, no whatever.
No Wundar the Barbarian.
That's fine. At least it's that different. And you were being very tongue-in-cheek. This is, like you said, a very Saturday morning comic. That's not a campaign anybody took terribly seriously. So that's different. But if you're trying not to be totally goofball, come up with the original name, Grug Strong Bad.
Holt Bradshaw.
Yeah, exactly. Terribly uninventive, and so avoid recreating a character from literature, TV, movies. Terribly uninventive, and you like to be disappointed that the system doesn't recreate what the character does in the book, the movie, whatever. And this is, I'll get to what I talked about with my nephew. I said, sure, most of the game is combat, especially in 5th edition D&D. So the combat role is important as far as picking your role, but what makes this character interesting outside combat? Does that concept jive with their role in the party? And that's where I think you can really take what would be a decent character, a good character, and make it even better. And I'm going to give props to my boy Eddie over here. When we played a campaign that we played for quite a while with me, Eddie, Gary, TJ, and Leela, some good friends of ours. We had a really fun campaign that we played for, seemed like over a year, quite a while. Eddie was playing an Elven Ranger. Put a period on it. He played that Elven Ranger quite well.
He was named Legolas.
Huh?
He was named Legolas.
Right. No, he wasn't named. He was Aravan or something. We called him Aravan the Caravan for some reason. But anyway, Aravan, what was interesting, there was a story that Eddie never let us in on. We had to figure out on our own, and he was subtle about it. It wasn't ham-fisted, but his character was a raging alcoholic. And so, but he was subtle about it, and we were so busy being murder hobos and jerks that
every time we went to town, they had to do find him in the bar the next day or whatever, dunk him in the trough a couple of times, and put him on his horse, and
maybe Eddie might kind of be a little like slow to respond during the first combat, let's say, of the day if we got attacked early on the road. I mean, he'd still bring it, but you could tell it wasn't like his usual, like his ranger was death on a stick. And that was because it's kind of like, well, he's hungover or whatever. So there was a role playing beyond just like, I'm playing an Elven Ranger. What do you got beyond that? What do you mean? What makes this character interesting? One time we had a situation, and I'll talk about my role playing years. We were going to play Pathfinder at Alvin Taylor's house, and I could tell nobody wanted to play the healer, so I'll play a cleric. I had 5 different clerics made. You go, what? Each one had a different concept beyond just being a cleric, like a role-playing idiom or whatever. And so that's what I'm getting at, is that's the hallmark to me of what separates the chumps from the more ooh la la role player is, you're playing a cleric, a warrior, whatever, and even then you should want to do that well, as I've already talked about. But also, what's going on beyond that outside combat? What's your deal? What is your character obsessed about? What drives them? So anyway. Anything you would add to that, sir?
Not really, but I do remember that I got the Ranger because everybody else had already been playing. So it was like, what do you guys need?
Yeah, we're like, play whatever you want. You know, you're like, well, how about a range guy? And you dabbled in roguery as well, because I don't think the party didn't have a rogue.
Between me and Gary's monk,
Yeah, y'all made one rogue when you kind of add up. Yeah, so but that was a really fun campaign and a fun character. You know, I played a sort of a Zap Brannigan, you know, sort of a face man paladin. You know,
which, remember, don't base your character off of other existing characters like Zap Brannigan.
Well, no, I mean,
it's so wrong.
Like I said, he wasn't called Zap Brannigan for two, as that wasn't his whole shtick, because he was a
Brap Zanigan.
Yeah, no, it was shit, I can't think of it now. That's bad.
With his brother Galen.
Yeah, that's right. Galen. Yeah, what was their last names? Oh man, that's bad, man. But anyway, yeah.
Put you on the spot.
That's right. But my guy didn't have a name you've ever heard of before, and for two it's just his demeanor, you know, the way he
Cain, Argentus Cain.
Argentus Cain, just a car of tear, you know. Yeah, but he was this big zealot, and you know, when you're building a character, it's got to have a good charisma and a good strength and a good con. You don't have a lot of points left for intel, so he was the sharpest tool in the shed, you know. But I played to that, and there's nothing, like I said, when I played back in the day, my half orc that was just a beat stick in 3.5, he had a really crappy charisma and intel. I played to that, and it kind of aggravates some people. But what aggravates me more is I see somebody like, oh, my character, when I'm min maxing him, his intelligence is 6. You're sure I come up with some really brilliant ideas for that character, you know. You're not really playing to your stats. Well, I mean, I just lowballed it because I'm min maxing. Well, if you're going to min max, at least play to it, you know. But anyway, that's another little tidbit there. But yeah, make your character interesting, play them well, and have fun at every game.
Every game?
Every game.
Wow.
Well, normally that's not your goal when gaming, but have fun. Everyone should be having fun.
Yeah, the GM should be collecting player tiers, and the players should be collecting GM tiers.
Exactly. There you go.
That's when you get to the really
exactly
high tier, high level play.
Right on. You know, you can make. All right, man. Do you think we're out of hit points?
Is that it?
I am. I told you this would be short and sweet.
Was it, folks?
It was.
Was it short and was it sweet?
It was sweet.
This is what happens when you don't give us barbecue.
Exactly. We're like, the shrimp are overcoming us. The breading. Anyway, yeah.
Swimming around.
You know it. All that butter. Like shrimp scampi. Them shrimps.
All right. Well, I guess the clock on the wall says we're all out of hit points, folks.